Have you ever wondered how to create a website that gets you a testimonial like this? Lucky for you, I'm going to be diving headfirst into an entire website strategy. In this video, I'm going to be showing you everything. We're going to start with the branding. So at the foundations, creating a brand script, mood board, photography, assets, typography. We're going to show how branding applies to bespoke elements of a website through a style tile, how to create a basic brand guides using existing assets that clients may have, site mapping, structure layout, and wireframing. And after we do all that, we're going to go into the back end. We're going to cover things like form submission automations using tools like Make and Zapier, CMS using Webflow and the development process behind setting up a template that clients can use to update their website. We're also going to talk about client management through a bespoke Notion portal, and also everything that goes into copywriting, site structure, and layout. I'm super excited to dive into this project and show you everything that goes on behind the scenes. If you guys don't know me, my name is Andy. I'm the owner and founder of MMG Design in Columbus, Ohio. My agency has built, scaled, and launched performance branding and websites for innovative companies and organizations in our state and nationwide. So with all of that out of the way, I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Let's dive on it. Okay, so before we go into each specific detail, I want to give you guys a bigger layout of everything that goes into this process. I have a Figma file laid out with everything kind of sequenced and laid out in terms of how we tackled this project. So we start with the brand script, we can move on to the mood board and style assets, the photography elements, the brand, how we tie his existing assets into what we have to work with photography, mood boarding. Then we move on to creating a style tile. So it's kind of applying existing branding to his assets and giving him a sense of how it works with some UI elements on the site. And then we go into creating basic sort of brand guidelines using colors and typography. And you start to see, the client starts to see how those visual elements pair together, creating some simple elements like cards using our photography and typography, button elements, calls to action, little things like the arrows, and start to populate that with the color. And they can really get a visual sense of what they're going to get. And then as we move into the site mapping and sort of the development, the back end, we start to see, okay, this is what we need in terms of a scope of the site. How is this branding going to apply to the different sections? So we get a wide level view of everything that's going to go on the site. And then we move into wireframing. So then based on this sitemap right here, we create a wireframe covering all of his services, the copy that goes on each, we start to refine where images go. And then without any styling attached, we just get a basic overview of how these things are going to look before we go in and populate these sections. And then we translate that to voila, a finished result. And obviously some design changes have undergone since launch, but we start to see like how this branding ties to our wireframe here and how it really comes to life. So that's a big picture overview. So we're going to go into each of these elements one at a time, unpack them, and show you the details of the process, starting with our brand script. Okay, so depending on where the client is at in their business, if they have existing assets, if they're established, they have branding, they could be at any phase in that process as we start doing a bespoke website. So Will, for example, of Acumen, he already had a basic logo design, and I could extract a color palette from that. It was one of those generated ones that you pay a company for and they generate different assets for. It wasn't really versatile, but it was something to start with, and we needed to establish his personal brand voice, suite of services, target audience, everything that is very important before we go in and extend upon the branding and sitemap and start to create service pages and all these other details. So this is something I do with all clients, is create a brand story slide deck, a brand pitch, if you will. A brand script. And if you guys are familiar with Donald Miller creating a story brand, this is sort of my take on that as a web designer and marketing consultant, a fractional creative partner. This is sort of like what we did for him. We start with an introduction, brand personality, foundations, audience, and a summary and needs analysis. So personally, I find that clients really like to see something like this. It shows that they are being understood and that we're on the right path. I personally present this after our first or second meeting, after I feel like I have enough information to kind of go in. I send a questionnaire to our clients, which I'll also show to you. But this is what it looked like for Will. Company overview, his values, roles served, motivations, his brand personality. So this is going to come to life in a copy of the website. As you can see, we don't really, I subtly sort of apply some of the branding because I do have that in the works at this point, but it does change. So the branding of this slide deck in itself is not perfectly matched to what the site ends up being, but giving them examples of how the copy is going to sound. So he's direct, and these are some of the keywords: he's professional, direct, supportive, industry expert, trusted advocate. All the things that are going to be realized through the combination of imagery and assets on the site, what we love doing. Giving him examples of how all these quotes sound. So he's direct, supportive, we're here to champion your search for exceptional talent. He's a trusted expert. At Acumen, we bring deep industry insight to every placement. And then we move on to our brand foundation. So we have kind of an internal glossary. This is basically some of the copy that's going to come to life on the website, making sure that some of the inside baseball is being explained, and that the client knows that I'm doing my research in terms of becoming an expert on their industry. And especially with Will's industry, job search, talent placement, talent acquisition, some of these terms are not very commonplace. So really just showing that we know that and making sure that on the website we're speaking to the right people, and when those people come, they're reading the copy and saying like, wow, this guy knows his stuff. And then we have like a basic overview of what a style guide would look like. So I haven't presented to them any sort of stylistic elements. We have their assets at this point, but basically giving a high level overview of what some of these will look like. So brand colors, design elements. We know his main color at this point: minimalistic, white, bold, attention grabbing headlines. So maintaining that balance of sleekness, professionalism, and also creating bespoke branding around that, so they get a general sense as to what the direction is headed towards. And then the most important part of any marketing asset is the audience, so who we're speaking to. And this really shows the client that you're on the same page in terms of the website strategy and who we're trying to reach. So we're speaking to operational leaders, sales and business development professionals, operations managers, marketing executives, facilities and maintenance roles, human resource specialists. And it's important to know this beforehand. So we're basically just optimizing the entire website experience from the perspective of these people. What's the actions that we want them to take? What copy do I want to see in order to convince me to book a call, submit a form, get in touch with Will? And this is kind of the hero's journey. So what Will's customers deal with before and after experiencing his services and his placement agencies. And basically the strategy with this website in particular for Acumen was we have two main people we're trying to reach. We have job candidates, so people that are looking to partner with Will to get them connected with an agency or job placement professional that can land them in a blue collar job. And we also have the placement agency professional. So a little bit about what they're experiencing beforehand and how Will solves their problem. And then we finish off with a strong brand script, and this gets them fired up. This is awesome. We are Acumen Talent, your trusted advocate in the Midwest for premier talent placement. With a relentless, research-driven approach, we leave no stone unturned to match top-tier candidates with mission-critical roles. Our commitment goes beyond placement. We're dedicated to ensuring every connection leads to long-term success and measurable impact for your team. So this is the summary of what we're trying to accomplish, and we're ending on that, and it makes it very clear, creates that alignment with the client. So this is the brand script story slide deck that I like to share with all clients. This is one of the very first deliverables that they get sort of in terms of our process. All right, so next we're going to move into the design and mood board elements. So what I basically like to do is I like to source different places, and this is just a screen grab of a mood board that's on another file because the other file is quite messy. As you designers know, in the creative phase, things can get quite messy, but this is an overview of sort of what it looks like, and some of these images wouldn't actually be in this phase. But I basically use a collection of inspiration sites, capture screen grabs, things that are on term with the industry. These can be from competitors. These can be from websites like Dribbble, Behance, awards.com, all these different sites that if I see something that I like in terms of UI elements, typography, branding, something that speaks to the alignment of the script that we've created, I screen grab it and I sort of put it in a capture document, and I start to put it into a massive board, and I can start to really just circle things that I like and I want to call out. So for example, on this website, I liked the bespoke branding of this palette right here. So if you guys go to coolers.com, you can start to create a color palette and see how it applies to existing elements. This was kind of the color layout we were going for. I really like this dashboard. I like this card section. I really like this gradient in the footer of this website, even though it's totally different colors. But and this one right here, this site, I really like sort of these card layouts and sort of the left-right segmentation of some of the headers. I like this sort of grid layout. So this was another talent agency sort of seeing the exact clients, industries that they work with and that they have placed jobs for. I like this image too because it had, strong social proof with this very good headshot and then the copy next to it and the contact me. And you'll start to see like how all of these elements kind of get unveiled in the final product, which we'll go through. And next we kind of move on to the photography. So Will had headshots done, and this is sort of a unique case where there isn't a ton of photos that we can have. So we basically have what Will had to work with, which was headshots, and that's more than enough to get started for a custom website. But we did have to place a lot of stock imagery using things like Adobe Firefly for AI image generation, Pexels, Pixabay, Unsplash, and also source some premium options from places like iStock and Adobe Stock as well. Two of the images we placed as well. So these are just a basic mood board sort of collaboration. So it's basically just sort of a mood board of images that work well before we go into, and I also go into Photoshop and start to optimize these and make sure the tints are aligned so that when they are realized on the website, they all look uniform, high definition before they get compressed and put onto the site. Next, we move on to the brand elements board. So I really like how some of these icons start to pair with some of our color palettes. This is where we get into typography and start to create a style guide, which I'll also show you in Webflow. But we started for this site, we decided to go with the bold header, like we mentioned in our brand script, and then pair that with a more professional semi-serif sort of body copy, something that's not overly serif and professional, because that would be a little bit off-brand, because this was his existing logo that he had to work with. Right here, using sort of the yellow, bronze, brown, dark mode sort of aesthetic right here. And we applied that to a word cloud to sort of show the client that these are the keywords that we are looking for in terms of branding and mood. Our color style right here, again, using coolers for that. Some iconography directions for the site. And again, this was the existing assets we had to work with. So pulling that from the logo, and we weren't going to use copper plate, which is what this font is for the copy. So choosing something that speaks the same from a branding perspective, but isn't exactly the same. And then what we do after that is we start to apply this to a style tile. So you guys can kind of see we're taking his existing assets that he had to work with, pulling from this logo, which was all we had, extracting this element for the header, and then showing him how it applies to what a website would look like. So a style tile is something I like to share all clients. They start to get a perspective of how the colors apply to a native interaction, like what a website experience would look like. So they start to see the type inlaid with the photo styles, the colors, the gradients, the things like the buttons, which are very important on the site, and then how the branding that we've kind of hemmed out and created through the script, the photography, the mood board, the brand guide, how that all applies to a website in and of itself. And these are the other elements that we create. So we start to go into things like the color palette, all of the existing ones that we then apply to a typography guide. So establishing a hierarchy, things like font size, font height, the body copy for both desktop and mobile. And then this is where it really starts to come to life, is through these UI elements. So we start to combine things from the style tile, from our photography with our colors into these branding assets and how it's going to look IRL on the website when the photography, colors, UI elements, buttons, things like that are all being paired together. It starts to really come to life here. And then we move on to the sitemap, how these things get realized over time. So the next thing we're going to dive into is Reloom, where I can show you the site structure and site mapping, get a little bit more granular and into the weeds in terms of the behind the scenes details. So over to Reloom next. So now I have Reloom pulled up. This is where we do our sitemap and wireframe. And I'm going to dive through each of our unique pages and our template pages. But before I do, if you guys are thinking, wow, this is a very in-depth process, I don't want to go through this whole thing myself of creating branding, style tiles, elements, design. I don't want to go through that whole process myself, or I'm looking for an agency to manage that for me. Luckily, this is what I do. So if you think there's an opportunity to work together or collaborate, you want some branding done. MMG, my agency, we've done branding and web development for several established businesses in the Columbus region and nationwide. If you want something like this done for your business, whether you're a service-based business, a solopreneur, a link to book a time with me will be in the description, and hopefully we can work together. Okay, so diving into the sitemap, again, this is Reloom, but basically we start to see, okay, what are all the pages that Will needs based on the questionnaire he has filled out, and how do we apply that to the overall holistic structure of the site? So we populate each of these pages. We have a home page, about us, recruiting, staffing, one for each of the people we're trying to meet, the process page, and the contact page. So we don't include the template CMS service pages in the sitemap, but then we start to pair this with a wireframe and we start to see like how all of these pages get realized. So these are what sort of a skin and bones version. We start to place where images will go. We really start to get and start to draft out some copy and apply the brand script, brand voice onto this section. And you'll start to see like how all of these template sections will translate onto the live site. So we have a recruiting page targeting recruiters, targeted by main value props, and then a call to action at the bottom that's tailored to them. We have a staffing page that is set up very similarly. Strong call to action, email collection, value props right here. Boom, boom, boom. Call to action. And then for our process page, this was something that we really wanted to hone in and dive in on, is getting really granular with his process, letting them know that Will is very professional and he puts thought into each phase of the interaction process, whether it's with dealing with people who need jobs for the industries that he serves, or they are placement agencies and they want to use Will as a middleman to source this talent. We also designed a contact page, so very simple. And here we also established the main calls to action. So for this one, we wanted it to be as low friction as possible. So putting a contact to Will directly via email and phone number in the header. And the drop down menu here is just for team testimonials and FAQs. And some of the stuff changes, as you will see on the live site throughout the development process. But this is sort of the skin and bones overview of getting a site in place and something that we can show the client in order to give them a good idea in terms of like how that's going to be realized onto the next step. So now I'm going to head over into Webflow and the development environment and show you how we set up the CMS template pages and to get a little bit of a view of how these pages came to life. Okay, I lied. So I'm actually going to show you guys the finished product so that when we go into the development environment, you can start to see how these things came together. This is the homepage section we ended up going with. We have our main calls to action, email, contact, and something that a really cool implementation we made with some custom code with this, which I'm super proud of, is we have an email copy paste. So on Will's past site, you find that a lot of people that sign up to an email submission, and we might change this later to a direct link to the contact form based on how this converts. But we wanted people to have a copy paste of his email straight in the header. And what you'll see is if you do a direct email redirect in a site link, sometimes if the default browser is not set up, I made a piece of content on this a while ago, but if the default browser is not Gmail, and they don't have their email settings configured within their browser, this can send you to a blank pop-up page. That's not something we wanted. So the workaround for that was having the email copy paste in the header. And then if we go over to a new tab and hit paste, we have Will's email right there. So, and you also think from a user standpoint, you also think from a user standpoint, if you have someone's email copy pasted to your clipboard, you're more likely to want to send that email right away. So going over these designs, we have these interactive stats section, and this was some of my input. I think these stats speak so powerfully to his credibility, his design. We have an awesome sort of backdrop video. Your hunt for talent starts with acumen, matching industry leaders with companies changing talent. And then we can segment our audience right away. I'm an employer, I'm a job seeker. And then as we scroll down, we have this shifting header. So the copy becomes black and the header becomes a background, which looks really nice. I think we implemented some JSON images for some dynamic elements. So his main value props that you get from working with him, and you can see kind of how our branding applied to these Lottie animations, which are a really cool addition to the site. They add a lot of design value to us. And then segmenting right away, boom. These are the jobs that we place. Warehousing, manufacturing, distribution, warehouse, distribution center, AI tech rules, logistics, and supply chain rules. And then a brief value prop tailored to each audience. So candidates and placing managers. So this one would be for placing managers and candidates right here, where they can get into touch for their bespoke links right away on the homepage. And we also have a great section of social proof here via testimonials. And we're still in the process of collecting headshots from these people, but this is great for social proof. We have his careers database, which we'll dive into from the Webflow CMS side. So this is something where Will can update as he gets new jobs that come in, new talent that he's working with. If someone comes to his website and they want to look at some of the job listings that he has placed, he can go to Inquire. You get a template service page all about this role, when it was posted, the job description, location, and company. And then if you're someone looking for a role like this, and you want to get in touch with Will to submit your resume or cover letter, you get sent to this unique link right here. And this is the link that is set up with our Make automation, which I'll also share with you. Name, email, upload cover letter, resume, and this will get sent directly to Will's email, so he can start that process and get them into his CRM. And a bit more on the design side of things, we have our page for job seekers. Again, this is our featured roles template page. But if we go back to our bespoke page for job seekers right here, we have hire the perfect candidate. This connects to a database as well, so you can start to collect email. H1 main value props right here. Again, that same service section that speaks to that audience. And then a contact form that goes directly to Will's email, where he can start to get in touch with these placement agencies. And then if we go over to the employers page, or the job seekers page right here, it's a very similar layout. So explore opportunities, get placed in the perfect role, main value props, precision matching, key industry insights, relationship first approach, and then a section of copy. Again, the careers database section, which he can update, and then that unique form, so they can get that process started, is on this page as well. So that's everything for this page. Again, we have our contact page, so get connected. There are several links that redirect to this page as well throughout the site. So and again, Will is not someone who wanted to have call bookings as the main call to actions, kind of contrast to some of our past agency clients. He'd rather have people fill out a form, because he does get a lot of submissions through this throughout the day. And it would be unreasonable for people to have access to his calendar. So the other things we made are some privacy policy, a privacy policy, and a terms and conditions page. So here's a privacy policy and our terms of service page, which we customized for him specifically. Everything on this site is fully responsive and design oriented. If we go into our Meet the Founder page, this is one of my favorites. It's awesome, but this is your replacement and recruiting advocate. You start to see some of the copy from our brand script come to life here. This was a connect with me on LinkedIn link. We have some more social proof with some credible organizations that he has partnered with in the past. We have this well-designed section here, again, highlighting those numbers, which are super strong. 90% position close success rate, 7 weeks average employee or average time from application from successful role to placement, and 20K savings per employee by using Acumen, which is just incredible. So as an agency, it makes it a lot easier when your clients actually do good work, so that you can just basically make a sales page that touts their past accomplishments and not have to be scraping the barrel for making them look good. So we'll take care of a lot of that by himself. So in terms of the design, that is everything. That is all of the unique pages. And now we're going to go into the form automations with Make. Job seekers can get their information to Will in a way that is seamless, presentable, and a way that he can get in touch with them right away. Alrighty, so now we are in Make, and Make is the automation platform we use to execute this form. So when job seekers go to the website and they want to submit their cover letter or resume to Will for a specific job, this is how that gets managed. So basically, the way it works, we set up a webhook to Webflow. And so if you go into the details, you can see this one is a file submission webhook. We got the link to that we input into the Webflow backend. We have our keys, the link that they tied to, and this is pretty simple to set up. Make is very easy to use, but then you basically just have to connect the data fields that you name. This is where we connect our Google Drive folder where this Google Sheet lives that the form populates, and where the images, where the files get uploaded to for the resumes and cover letters that get submitted. And this is the email automation that gets sent after each submission is submitted. So we'll get an email after someone submits their cover letter and resume that has this template right here. So it pulls from the resume and cover letter. He gets an email that says, this is your content, name, contact, job interest, and the file. So they get a web view link of what the email looks like. And that's the automation setup in Make. So now we're in Webflow. I'm going to show you guys how we set up all the pages, and in specific, the template pages for the job roles that Will is trying to get placements for. So if we go into all the pages right here, we can see home, hirers, about, process, contact, job seekers, careers form, careers, privacy policy, terms of service, and open roles. And this is what we're going to touch on. So if we look at our CMS here on the side, we can see these are all of our collections. So these are where if Will has a new job open for whatever comes up, and he wants to place a new website, a new job role on his website, he basically just clicks here, go to open role, and he can input all of his information. It'll start to generate all these fields that will tie to the fields that are populated on that page. So he'll get a name, slug, if it's active or not, that shows as to where it populates. The job image, if there has one, a job description, company, location, and details. And all of this, actually without saving, all of these other roles are sample ones for now. But if you go into how this populates on the page, you get these same form fields, and all of these roles look like this, with an instant redirect to where they can fill out the form, which we just talked about, to get in touch with him. And we combine that with some social proof from his testimonial, which I think looks awesome sauceum. So that's kind of the development background behind tying this form to Make, kind of how that looks in real life, and how Will goes about adding a new job role as these things come up. And the good part about this is that he's very active on LinkedIn. So it also spins up a link for that job posting that he can then post out and start to get inquiries and traffic to the site through that. So that's kind of how this is realized on the website. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you guys is client management. So each client that we work with at MMG Design gets their own customized client hub in Notion. And this is what it looks like for Will. We have to update it all the way to make it complete. But I give them a quick access board. They get onboarded. I customize this to them, and it really makes the process seamless. So looking at the client hub here, we have a tutorial overview for clients to look at. We have access to their Moxie portal right here. So this is where they can cover invoices and everything, kind of see where they're at with the status of their project. They can log in with their own unique login to pay their invoices at different touch points and checkpoints throughout the project. They have a sitemap link, so you can look at our Reloom sitemap as we go, and if we make changes to it, and if they want to leave comments on it, they can as well right here, and do that with that tooltip. Back to the hub, we have their markup link. So this is how we handle feedback throughout the process. They get their markup link, and they can go in and make comments on this is how we handle revisions and staying in touch with the communication, making sure I respond to all of their comments as well, and making changes and best practices and recommendations for every page on the site. They can switch between commenting and browsing. So that is markup and how we handle feedback for clients. Next up, and the links, we have our staging domains. This looks the same as the live site where they can go in and check their progress. They have, and after launch, this is sort of the end phases. As we can see, we segment into our 4 phases of the project. As I said, this was done in 2 weeks. So we did a great job of streamlining the process and this upfront investment of making sure they know how to navigate all of their links straight away from a link that they can pin in their dashboard or to their progress or to their taskbar. It makes it super easy for clients to manage, and they love this. But here we kind of have how all of these tie into the unique phases, and I go through and check these off. So this is our onboarding meeting. Onboarding payment shows them where you can log in and take care of that in his portal. Summary notes from the meeting, access links where they can book a call if they need to, if they have a question throughout the project. Other links where they can see their sitemap, markup link, making sure they have access to that at each phase of the project. And yeah, and then after we get to our first few meetings, we start on the onboarding. We do phase 1, design, development. We can also put it in a timeline view here. So we can see like how these get realized in terms of the whole process. So starting on this date and then finishing 1 week later, I usually like to do the onboarding meeting. So I like to space these checkpoints kind of a week apart. So sitemap review and strategy, once that's approved, we move back to the feedback meeting. And this point, I'm developing, making the wireframe, establishing the Webflow project. At this point, we do launch. So it is launch guide, launch payment, and launch meeting. And then after that, we have these supplementary resources for Will at the launch phase. So we have his guide right here, which is unique and tailored to his existing platform, telling him what he needs to come to the call with. So I need him on the call to create a Webflow account, hosting domain information, and including tutorials for their existing platforms that they might be migrating from. In this case, it was Wix. So this is a link where he can log in to his old Wix account, get his domain info, and have that ready for the call. For the launch meeting, this is what we had where you can schedule that right there. And then the launch payment, so a link to his invoice at that phase. And afterwards, we have our growth phase discussion, which is the most important part of the project. So this is where we schedule a link to where we discuss a management plan. So how we're going to manage updates, if we're using markup, if we're going to go with a more managed approach in terms of updating the site, making sure the SEO and everything is up to par and that the site is live and getting traffic. Analytics reporting using Microsoft Clarity, Google Analytics, and Search Console, all these things. And then something I also do is empower clients and give them tutorials and overviews. I do an on-call training with Will as well on how to use the editor mode of Webflow. But I also provide some resources and some basic tutorials. They want to empower themselves to make some bigger scope sort of class changes. Something I usually include in here as well is their Google Drive link. So this houses the brand script as well, which I already showed you guys. But if we go over to Google Drive, you can see if we go back to Google Drive here, we can see they have their file set up where they can start to handle asset transfer. So this is copy and words. We have a Google Doc where they can implement copy that they want on the website, and we can kind of have commenting going back and forth there. We have our form submission data collection spreadsheet. We have our headshots and assets that they can drop more into. We have our existing imagery, stock, brand, logos, etc., like that, and some more stuff here for logos, additional files if they need. So, and also if they have any videos or anything, more assets to work with, that'll get dropped in here as well. So I think that about covers everything. I showed you guys everything from the brand development process, using assets to create a bespoke experience on the website, colors, typography, branding, photos, UI elements, a style tile, a brand script to start with, and how we start to tie that all together and work in some of the back-end stuff in terms of the technical Webflow, the CMS, the make automations, Notion for client management, Google Drive, communication, the process, setting up the client hub, everything that goes into a brand or website development sprint like this. Again, so if you guys like seeing this behind the scenes process and everything that goes into a home run project like this that is getting Will new business, clients, leads, and has set him up for future success at Acumen Talent. I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Will for being such an awesome collaborator. Appreciate him leaving this testimonial. Thank you guys for watching. Again, my name is Andy of MMG Design. I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive case study, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.